나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 Not sure if I'm getting the focus on this camera. It may be my eyeballs that are unfocused this morning. Thank you for being here. Hope you're healthy and safe. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Let's get this day started. I need to do this today as I've needed Daimoku this morning. It's been a rough morning. But all in all, hey, I'm here. It's a good thing. We left off on the Diamond Sutra, Perfection of Wisdom teachings, at the beginning of the 8th stanza. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? If some noble son or daughter filled the billion worlds of this universe with the 7 jewels and gave them as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhans, the fully enlightened ones, would the body of merit produced as a result by this noble son or daughter be great? Subhuti answered, Great indeed, Bhagavan. The body of merit produced as a result by that noble son or daughter would be great, Sugata. And how so? Bhagavan, whatever is said by the Tathagata to be a body of merit is said by the Tathagata to be no body. Thus, does the Tathagata speak of a body of merit as a body of merit? The Buddha said, Subhuti, if instead of filling the billion worlds of this universe with the 7 jewels and giving them as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhans, the fully enlightened ones, this noble son or daughter grasped but one 4-line gatha of this Dharma teaching, and made it known and explained it in detail to others, the body of merit produced as a result would be immeasurably, infinitely greater. And how so? Subhuti, from this is born the unexcelled perfect enlightenment of Tathagatas, Arhans, and fully enlightened ones. From this are born Buddhas and Bhagavans. And how so? Buddha Dharmas, Subhuti, Buddha Dharmas, are spoken of by the Tathagata as no Buddha Dharma. Thus are they called Buddha Dharmas. There's this constant line being drawn between earthly experience and enlightened experience. Keep jumping on each side of the line. In today's world, there's, I doubt, very few humans on this planet that are not touched by the economics of currency. Whether it's a ruble, a dollar, petrodollar, Bitcoin, or yuan dollar, whatever. The exchange of value between humans in samsara is thingified. Whether it's currency or an object that somehow inculcates currency, a cheap watch, an expensive watch, a Rolex, a Timex, a Game Boy, an Xbox, everywhere. An economy car, a performance, a Rolls Royce Shadow, a Bugatti, an aircraft, a motorcycle. What is the establishment of value amongst humans in our human experience? And yet, even if you could fly William Shatner into the atmosphere, whoopee-doo, if you were to understand Myoho Renge-kyo, and you were to teach others Myoho Renge-kyo, the merit, the enlightenment, the life condition, and the value of that life condition shared would so far surpass the temporary excitement of a samsaric value, that it's immeasurably larger, immeasurably more valuable. If I give you a Learjet, you will certainly be excited. It won't take long until you understand the cost of maintaining that Learjet, maintaining a pilot for that Learjet, maintaining a mechanic for that Learjet, fueling that Learjet, let alone having a destination and what to do when you land that Learjet, and how possessing that Learjet will become a source of great stress and anxiety for you. But you'll have a Learjet. You could sell it and get money, and then spend that money on stuff until you run out of that money. It's a finite amount. You could invest it to try to prolong your joy. But all of these steps have tremendous stress and anxiety built into them, because that's the nature of finding value in thingifying. It immediately inculcates stress and anxiety. But if I teach you how to release that stuff, how to find something in your own experience that is untethered, then that value is intimate to you. And when we share that, the value grows simply by our proximity and our common mind. The merits of that are incalculable. That's what Shakyamuni is talking about here with Subhuti. Tell me, Subhuti, do those who find the river think, I have attained the goal of finding the river? Subhuti replied, No, indeed, Bhagavan. Those who find the river do not think, I have attained the goal of finding the river. And why not? Bhagavan, they do not find any such dharma. Thus, they are said to find the river. They do not find a sight, nor do they find a sound, a smell, a taste, a touch, or a dharma. Thus, they are said to find the river. Bhagavan, if those who found the river should think, I have attained the goal of finding the river, they would be attached to a self, they would be attached to a being, a life, and a soul. Do you understand why that makes sense? To declare that you have attained the finding of the river is a statement of your ownership of finding river of finding the river. For every human ever existed, you have attained finding the river. How self-centered is that? It requires, firstly, a sense of self, that this belongs to you. You can say you've attained it, but that's just another way of saying obtained it. That it is yours, that you possess it. And all of that is illusion and fantasy. It makes no sense whatsoever. You may have come upon a river and experiencing a river, but you have not attained that. It is already there. You're simply experiencing it. And you can say this is semantics, but it's an important distinction to understand the difference. The Buddha said, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who return once more think, I have attained the goal of returning once more?" Subhuti replied, "No, indeed, Bhagavan. Those who return once more do not think, I have attained the goal of returning once more. And why not? Bhagavan, they do not find any such dharma as returning once more." Thus they are said to return once more. The Buddha said, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who return no more think, I have attained the goal of returning no more?" Subhuti replied, "No, indeed, Bhagavan. Those who return no more do not think, I have attained the goal of returning no more. And why not? Bhagavan, they do not find any such dharma as returning no more. Thus are they said to return no more." The Buddha said, "Tell me, Subhuti, do those who are free from rebirth think," see, he's talking about Hinayana, earlier teaching here, those who think they've attained something where they will never return. The idea of returning no more is an idea that is nonsense. So to declare that I've attained the level of returning no more is smoke. Thus, those people who would claim or say that are known as the people who claim to return no more. Do you see the linguistic game here? Do those who are free from rebirth think, I have attained freedom from rebirth? Subhuti replied, "No, indeed, Bhagavan. Those who are free from rebirth do not think I have attained freedom from rebirth. And why not? Bhagavan, there is no such dharma as freedom from rebirth." Is there an energy source, a manifestation of energies that is freedom from rebirth? That's a constructed thing. It denies its own existence simply because it is a constructed thing, a thought. I have attained freedom from rebirth. They would be attached to a self, they would be attached to a being, a life, and a soul. So by the very nature of saying, I have attained, what's the verbiage? Freedom from rebirth, you are in fact saying that you are reborn. That there is a thing to rebirth. A self, a body, a bag of bob. You are not a bag of bob. You are a perceptive process of the instantiation of all phenomena. You are an observer of the process that is not things, but active instantiation of energies, moment to moment, playing out There is never a singular thing, because a thing presupposes permanence. The perceived continuity is the illusion of time from our human perspective. But you could see time. I want to use the Planck distance, or Planck time. If you could see time at that rate, it would be obvious that things instantiate and disappear constantly. And how so? Bhagavan, the Tathagata, the Arhan, the fully enlightened one, has declared that I am foremost among those who dwell free of passion. Bhagavan, although I am free from rebirth and without desires, I do not think I am free from rebirth and without desires. Bhagavan, if I thought I have attained freedom from rebirth, the Tathagata would not have singled me out by saying, foremost among those who dwell free of passion is the noble son Subhuti, for he dwells nowhere at all. Thus is he called one who dwells free of passion, who dwells free of passion. Notice the use of the word dwells. Dwelling is a very important word here because it means permanence. It means continued existence. It is birth, dwelling, death, rather than birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. There is no dwelling. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Did the Tathagata obtain any such dharma in the presence of Dipankara Tathagata, the Arhan, the fully enlightened one? Subhuti replied, no, indeed, Bhagavan, the Tathagata did not obtain any such dharma in the presence of Dipankara Tathagata, the Arhan, the fully enlightened one. If you're familiar with the stories of Shakyamuni describing his past lives, which are really just his past life, to people who are enamored of the concept of reincarnation, which is not a Buddhist concept, by the way. He spoke of his service to a Buddha called Dipankara, who then taught him how to achieve Buddhahood himself. He's talking about his own mind, his process of enlightenment, how he came to be enlightened. Not literal past lifetimes. Sorry about that. Subhuti replied, no, indeed, Bhagavan, the Tathagata did not obtain any such dharma. Dharma being, as I explained yesterday, a raft, an explanation of, a process, not a thing in itself, but an apparatus, right? And life, samsaric life, is an apparatus. The Buddha said, if any bodhisattva should thus claim, I shall bring about the transformation of a world, such a claim would be untrue. And how so? The transformation of a world, Subhuti, the transformation of a world is said by the Tathagata to be no transformation. Thus is it called the transformation of a world. Therefore, Subhuti, fearless bodhisattvas should thus give birth to a thought that is not attached, and not give birth to a thought attached to anything. They should not give birth to a thought attached to a sight, nor should they give birth to a thought attached to a sound, smell, taste, touch, or dharma. Subhuti, imagine a person with an immense perfect body whose self-existence is like that of Mount Sumeru. What do you think, Subhuti? Would such self-existence be great? Great indeed, Bhagavan. Such self-existence would be great, Sugata. And why? Because self-existence, Bhagavan, self-existence is said by the Tathagata to be no existence. Thus is it called self-existence, because, Bhagavan, it is neither existence nor no existence. Thus is it called self-existence. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? If there were as many rivers as there are grains of sand in the great river of the Ganges, would the number of grains of sand in all those rivers be great? The number of rivers would be great, Bhagavan. How much more so would there grains of sand? The Buddha said, I shall tell you, Subhuti, so you shall know. If a man or woman filled as many worlds as there are grains of sand in all those rivers with the 7 jewels and gave them as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhans, the fully enlightened ones, what do you think, Subhuti, would the body of merit produced as a result by that man or woman be great? Subhuti replied, it would be great, Bhagavan, great indeed. Sugata, the body of merit produced by, as a result by that man or woman would be immeasurable and infinite. I know this is repetitive, but this is the nature of the perfection of wisdom teachings, right? The Buddha said, Subhuti, if then a man or woman filled as many worlds as that with the 7 jewels and gave them as a gift to the Tathagatas, the Arhans, the fully enlightened ones, and the noble son or daughter, grasped but one 4-line gatha of this Dharma teaching, and made it known and explained it to others, the body of merit produced as a result would be immeasurably, infinitely greater. Furthermore, Subhuti, wherever but one 4-line gatha of this Dharma teaching is spoken or explained, that place is like a stupa in the world of devas, humans, and asuras. How much more shall they be remarkably rewarded, Subhuti, who memorize, recite, and master this entire teaching and explain it in detail to others. For in that place, Subhuti, dwells a teacher or one who represents the guru of wisdom. We're finally getting to wisdom here. This having been said, the Venerable Subhuti asked Bhagavan, what is the name of this Dharma teaching and how should we remember it? The Buddha told the Venerable Subhuti, the name of this Dharma teaching, Subhuti, is the perfection of wisdom. Thus should you remember it. And how so, Subhuti? What the Tathagata says is the perfection of wisdom. The Tathagata says is no perfection. Thus is it called the perfection of wisdom. Subhuti, what do you think? Is there any such Dharma spoken by the Tathagata? Subhuti said, no, indeed, Bhagavan, there is no such Dharma spoken by the Tathagata. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Are there all the specks of dust in the billion world system of a universe many? Many, Bhagavan. The specks of dust are many, Sugata. And how? Because Bhagavan, the Tathagata, says it is a speck of dust. Bhagavan, the Tathagata, says is no speck. Thus is it called a speck of dust. And what the Tathagata says is a world system, the Tathagata says is no system. Thus is it called a world system. The Buddha said, Subhuti, what do you think? Can the Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, be seen by means of the 32 attributes of a perfect person? Subhuti said, no, indeed, Bhagavan. The Tathagata, the Arhat, the fully enlightened one, cannot be seen by means of 32 attributes of a perfect person. And why not? Because, Bhagavan, what the Tathagata says are the 32 attributes of a perfect person. Bhagavan, the Tathagata says are no attributes. By the force of this Dharma, the Venerable Subhuti was moved to tears. Wiping his eyes, he said to the Buddha, "How remarkable, Bhagavan, how most remarkable, Sugata, is this Dharma teaching that the Bhagavan speaks for the benefit of those beings who seek the foremost of paths, for the benefit of those who seek the best of paths, and from which my own awareness is born. Bhagavan, I have never heard such a teaching as this. They shall be the most remarkable, rewarded of the bodhisattvas, Bhagavan, who hear what is said in this sutra and give birth to a perception of its truth." And how so, Bhagavan? A perception of this truth is no perception of its truth. Thus does the Tathagata speak of a perception of its truth as a perception of its truth. Hearing such a Dharma teaching as this, Bhagavan, it is not remarkable that I should trust and believe it. But in the future, Bhagavan, in the final epoch, in the final period, in the final 500 years of the Dharma-ending age, Bhagavan, those beings who grasp this Dharma teaching and memorize it, recite it, master it, and explain it in detail to others, they shall be most remarkably rewarded. Moreover, Bhagavan, they shall not create the perception of a self, nor shall they create the perception of a being, the perception of a life, or the perception of a soul. They shall create neither a perception nor a perception. And why not? Bhagavan, the perception of a self is no perception, and the perception of a being, a life, or a soul is also no perception. And why not? Because Buddhas and Bhagavans are free of all perceptions. This having been said, the Buddha told the Venerable Subhuti, "So it is, Subhuti, so it is. Those beings shall be most remarkably rewarded, Subhuti, who are not alarmed, not frightened, and not distressed by what is said in this sutra." And how so, Subhuti? What the Tathagata proclaims as the best of perfection is, in truth, no perfection. Moreover, Subhuti, what the Tathagata proclaims as the best of perfections is also proclaimed by countless Buddhas and Bhagavans. Thus it is called the best of perfection. So too, Subhuti, is the Tathagata's perfection of forbearance, no perfection. And how so? Subhuti, when King Kali cut off my limbs, my ears and nose, and my flesh, at the moment I had no perception of self, a being, a life, or a soul. I had neither the perception or no perception. And why not? At that moment, Subhuti, if I had had the perception of a self, at that moment I would have also had a perception of anger. Or if I had had the perception of a being, the perception of a life, or the perception of a soul, at that moment I would have had the perception of anger. And how so, Subhuti? I recall the 500 lifetimes I was the mendicant of Kshanti, and during the time I had no perception of a self, nor did I have the perception of a being, the perception of a life, or the perception of a soul. Therefore, Subhuti, fearless bodhisattvas should get rid of all perceptions in giving birth to the thought of unexcelled perfect enlightenment. They should not give birth to a thought attached to sight, nor they should give birth to a thought attached to sound, smell, taste, touch, or the Dharma. A Dharma. They should not give birth to a thought attached to a Dharma, nor should they give birth to the thought attached to no Dharma. They should not give birth to a thought attached to anything. And why not? Every attachment is no attachment. Thus the Tathagata says that bodhisattvas should give gifts without being attached. They should give gifts without being attached to sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, or Dharma. He's going to go on here. Yeah, I circled a couple of these things here. Where are we time-wise? Yeah, we have time to get there, if you'll indulge me. This is, I realize, as I read this, it's important to distinguish the arriving from the experience in the moment. If our mind is occupied by the thoughts of getting there or getting here or being here or leaving here, then what Shakyamuni is saying is you're never here. Here as a destination implies a set of conditions that you're inventing rather than experiencing the tendencies and conditions unfolding and manifesting moment to moment. Become an experiencer. See, I've used the word observer, and I'm afraid that might be somewhat misleading, because an observer is distanced from the moment. And that's not what I mean. Is an experiencer, but that doesn't fall into the process acting it out. And the words acting it out are very specific. It means that as an actor, you instantiate a self, a possessor, an ownership of each moment, which is delusion. Each moment is occurring. How else could I say this? Much has been made prior to these teachings about the letting go of attachments. But it doesn't take very much meditation and thought on those words to start dissecting what do you mean by attachment? And what am I letting go of? And so then there needs to be a new vocabulary around those words that elucidates the fallacy that those words produce. For instance, those words themselves are conduits of selves. See, our language is built on ownership and possession of things. It's a thingified language. So when Shakyamuni says, there is no this, because to do this is to instantiate a self, an entity, a birth, a death, a time, a life, a soul. He's saying the language we're using is deceiving us into thingifying. So if you could remove the language, what are you left with? The experience is still there. The language doesn't make the experience, correct? The language is a very poor, crude way of communicating what could be the experience. But in that very act of description, we posit ourselves as an existent, T-E-N-T. And from that, we are an I, a self, a participant. But to think of ourselves as a participant is to thingify our mind, our self. So don't be a participant, be an experiencer. Your mind experience does not requisite fingers, taste, sight, sound, mouth. life, self, or soul. That's a thingification of this experience. Does that help? Trying to divide these two things. The mind of experience versus the body supporting the apparatus, supporting the mind as the experiencer is incorrect. That is the illusion. You need to separate those two. They're already separate. That's why the Buddha already exists. But our body drags it into its self. It thingifies the mind. It's just a hard break. It's a mental break. That's why when we chant Myoho Renge Kyo, we are not wishing our Buddha nature into existence. We are invoking it. We're basically removing the samsaric guise of experience from its thingification, and we are invoking that state of mind. So it's a confusing thing. Even Nichiren, well, the translations of Nichiren, use the word desire in single-mindedly desiring to see the Buddha. The division from when desiring to see the Buddha becomes Buddha, and the desiring is gone because it's an illusion, is a trick Nichiren uses to take your samsaric self and direct it to its Buddha mind with the confidence that the rest of this stuff will just fall away. But if we don't understand that that's what we're doing, there's a likelihood that we'll just keep chanting, wishing for a car, wishing we looked better, wishing... get the wishing out of there, because that's what attaches you, sinks its claws into you about selfhood. And that's the whole game. And, of course, Shakyamuni has more to say about this. Bodhisattvas should practice charity in this manner for the benefit of all beings. Charity how? Tolerance. Not charity financially, but in spirit. Understand that others are stuck in selfhood. And how so, Subhuti? The perception of a being is no perception. Likewise, all the beings of whom the Tathagata speaks are thus no beings. And how so, Subhuti? What the Tathagata says is real. What the Tathagata says is true. And as he says it is and is not other than as he says it is. What the Tathagata says is not false. Moreover, Subhuti, in the Dharma realized, taught, and reflected on by the Tathagata, there is nothing true and nothing false. I'm talking about an experience. Judging it, true or false, is the busyness of discernment. Discernment being identification, possession. See how the words are slippery, and he's trying very hard to define that line. Subhuti, imagine a person who enters a dark place and who can't see a thing. He is like a bodhisattva ruled by objects. Like someone practicing charity ruled by objects. Now, Subhuti, imagine a person with eyesight at the end of the night when the sun shines forth, who can see all manner of things. He is like a bodhisattva, not ruled by objects. Like someone practicing charity, not ruled by objects. Furthermore, Subhuti, if a noble son or daughter should grasp this Dharma teaching and memorize it, recite it, master it, and explain it in detail to others, the Tathagata will know them, Subhuti, by means of his Buddha knowledge. So we'll be touched by Buddha. Not Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha mind, Buddha-ness. And the Tathagata will see them, Subhuti, by means of his Buddha vision. The Tathagata will be aware of them, Subhuti, for all such beings produce and obtain an immeasurable infinite body of merit. We become the energy itself, that experience of the energy in its unfathomable, uncountable manifestations, instantiations, in time without time. Furthermore, Subhuti, if a man or woman renounced their self-existence during the morning as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, and likewise renounce their self-existence during the midday as many times as there are grains of sand in the Ganges, and renounce their self-existence during the afternoon as many times as grains of sand in the Ganges, and renounce their self-existence in this manner for many hundreds and thousands and millions and trillions of kalpas, and someone heard this Dharma teaching and did not reject it, the body of merit produced as a result would be immeasurable, infinitely greater. How much more so if they not only wrote it down, but grasped it, memorized it, recited it, mastered it, and explained it in detail to others. This is, people ask, how did Nichiren come up with this practice? They're under the illusion that Nichiren created Buddhism. The Bodhisattva practice has been around for centuries. It's something Shakyamuni has been trying to describe since the get-go. In fact, you could read the Avatamsaka Sutra, the first sermon in Japanese Kigan Sutra, and you could see that he was describing the experience of being a bodhisattva coursing in the Buddha mind. But nobody was prepared for that. That's why he had to back off and go through all of these stages of development for others, doing exactly what he's saying here. Furthermore, Subhuti, inconceivable and incomparable is this Dharma teaching spoken by the Tathagata, Subhuti, for the benefit of those beings who set forth on the foremost of paths, for the benefit of those beings who set forth on the best of paths. For if someone grasps, memorizes, recites, and masters this Dharma teaching and explains it in detail to others, the Tathagata will know them, Subhuti, by means of his Buddha knowledge, and the Tathagata will see them by means of his Buddha vision. The Tathagata will be aware of them, Subhuti, for all such beings produce a body of merit that has no limits, a body of merit that is inconceivable, incomparable, immeasurable, and boundless. For all such beings as these, Subhuti, likewise wear enlightenment upon their shoulders, the mind. And how so, Subhuti? This Dharma teaching cannot be heard by beings of lesser aspiration. I want you to take a moment to realize what he just said. This Dharma teaching cannot be heard by beings of lesser aspiration, single-mindedly desiring to see the Buddha. That is the only aspiration that will lead you to your Buddha mind. Myoho Renge Kyo is your invoking of it. Your samsaric mind needs to understand how to deal with that. not by those who mistakenly perceive a self, nor by those who mistakenly perceive a being, a life, or a soul, for beings who lack the bodhisattva's aspiration cannot hear, grasp, memorize, recite, or master this Dharma teaching. Moreover, Subhuti, wherever this sutra is explained, that place shall be honored. Whether in the realm of devas, humans, or asuras, that place shall be honored with prostrations and circumambulations. That place shall be like a stupa. All right. We're going to start on 16 next. I'm going to end there. Try to say a few more words that I hope what we do in our practice we invoke our Buddha mind so that with that level of consciousness, the ninth consciousness, we can see within our samsaric experience opportunity. That at every moment a thought occurs in our minds, we consciously experience the monkeys, the formations of desires, body, self. If we can walk through, start with small time increments. You do your gongyo, you do 30 minutes of chanting, an hour chant, however much you do. I don't want to limit it. But when you walk back into the world, you become hyper-conscious of how you relate to that world. Are your first thoughts about, this is my house, these are my feet, this is how I dress, this is how I speak to others, this is how others see me? How much of your samsaric thinking revolves around the idea of selfhood for yourself and for others? Can you train yourself with the mind that you've invoked to see yourself and others as processes, as trajectories? It's like Buddha was saying, there is no thing that is trajectory. There is movement, motion, speed, acceleration, all the physics of it, right? Materiality, that we can identify motion, trajectory, but as bodhisattvas, as Buddha mind, rather than see trajectory, we see the constant instantiation of materiality that can vanish at any moment. How often is a trajectory interrupted by a sudden stop? So trajectory isn't a thing. It's an idea. It's a perception. And we should be able to perceive all things in that way. Yes, but Sifu, a trajectory, I understand. It's a verb, it's an action, it's a thing happening. I mean, but it's not a thing. But a chair is a thing. I can sit in a chair. But try, dear friend, try to understand that the chair is no less an invention as the trajectory. That to see the chair as dwelling is to misunderstand chair. Not that it doesn't exist. We are in samsara. But understand that it is a temporary instantiation of many, 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 many things, energies, manifesting. And it could disappear at any point. You may consider how you sit differently. Right? Isn't our posture described by Shakyamuni as straight-backed, alert, head held from the sky? Why do you think that is? Because that's an attentive mind. An attentive mind that understands that that things are in constant change. This person, that person is densely involved in self, completely dependent on permanence, just by body position. As bodhisattvas, this is where we need to get our minds. To be attentive with the Buddha mind while we navigate this truly amazing samsara with all of its illusions, never losing sight of the constant transitions of birth, death, birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. In fact, go a step further. Because as I've described it so far, you could say, well, that painting over there, or this book exists. Okay, it exists moment to moment to moment to moment, so that it really doesn't exist. It's a construct of these point-to-point instantiations of a certain kind, and it is decaying in my hand as I hold it. The step further I want you to go, though, as Shakyamuni is trying to describe here, is that every atom, fiber, energy, everything that this seems to represent only represents it to me and you as you see it through this medium. Think about that. This book, as solid as it seems, is just little electrons bouncing off your eyeballs, your rods and cones. Is that real? It's useful as a tool, just as memorizing, reciting is. But you don't memorize and recite because that itself has value. You memorize and recite and master, and then communicate. That's where the value is. That's where the bodhisattva is. Because that can't be held. That is an experience, an exchange of energies, an enlightenment. That's why it's perfect enlightenment. Because you can't grasp it. That Dharma is no Dharma. Is it starting to gel? Oh gosh, this is a hell of a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. But that shouldn't stop us the effort. How do you get good at anything? Practice, practice, practice. Sometimes you practice a long time before you get that, oh, now I get what this is about. That's samsara. Don't hate it, because that makes it real. Observe it for what it is. It's our apparatus to engage total clarity of the process, which is outstanding, amazing, beyond measure. That's the merit that's translated into these books, the rewards, as I like to say. They're not cash, they're not golden idols, they're merit rewards of enlightenment, understanding, experience. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. That's enough for today. I hope this helps. If you have suggestions for maybe another way to talk about this, I'd love to hear your comments. Write them. I read them. I love to read them. I get so much out of your comments. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Take care of yourselves. Be healthy. Be kind. And I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.